Hello everyone, we are officially live. I will give everyone a second to get logged in. And I've had lots of questions submitted, and if you did submit a question, or if you would like to, you can send it to coffeedatewithtina@gmail.com, and I'm kind of just going through them in chronological order. So if you have submitted a question, I'm taking them. Good morning. I'm taking them kind of in order, and I'll just roll through them each week. So thank you so much for we've had a really great response. Hi, and happy Saturday morning. I like doing them at this time because it gets me up and motivated for the day early, and my kids are still asleep. So they're both officially teenagers now. Good morning. Hi, everyone. So they don't wake up for a long time if you let them sleep. It's kind of crazy. I remember being in that position, so more power to them. So I am Tina Swithin, author of Divorcing a Narcissist and founder of One Mom's Battle. I call myself the accidental author and advocate. I never planned to be. Autumn's coffee is brewing, and I've got my Divorcing a Narcissist coffee cup. I never planned, never in my wildest dreams, to write a book, let alone 5. And never saw myself doing all of this either, but sometimes life has other plans for you. And I know for myself, I always say, it gives me purpose to what we've been through and what my daughters have been through. And so I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to all of you who tune in. Our little group is growing. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, our group is growing, and I love it. I'm going to keep doing it for indefinitely. So please, I have to share this. It's really funny. My family and I did a quarantine style photo shoot with masks on. We took some without masks too, but you got to find humor in all of this craziness that's happening in our world. So Baltimore, Maryland. Yay! I love that part of the country. Oh, and I've officially finished opening up all 50 chapters of One Mom's Battle. There's actually more than 50 because I've also opened Canada and Australia. So if you haven't already joined your state chapter, they are private groups. My goal is to align people in their own jurisdiction, in their own states, because each state is so different. And, we've purposely kept the One Mom's Battle Facebook page. We get a lot of feedback that people wish it were private. And I'll tell you, we've kept it open to the public since 2011 when I first started it. And the reason is every day I'm making contact with judges and other family court professionals and opening up the lines of communication and domestic violence agencies. And if we keep it private, they are going to it's going to stay in the dark. This is a topic that has been kept in the dark forever. And a lot of those people that I'm making contact with, they are now following our stories on Facebook, and they're learning right alongside us, and they're seeing what a huge issue this is within the system. So please join your state chapter. However, I like to issue a disclaimer. I see people write things in private, secret Facebook groups that make me cringe. You need to keep in mind that even in a private group, whether it's ours or anybody else's, social media is social media, and it's open to subpoena. And in fact, I've seen people have their entire Facebook subpoenaed directly from Facebook headquarters. And what I've seen is that that will include private messages that you sent, deleted messages that you think you've erased, anything you post in any group, whether it's private or public. And so, you want to still be careful. If I would never put something in writing on social media unless I would feel comfortable standing in front of a courtroom and reciting it out loud, because that is very, that can happen to you. So be really careful. Somebody just said, how do you join your state chapter? You can go, one of my recent blogs on One Mom's Battle, onemomsbattle.com, it talks about the state chapters and it gives you step-by-step how to apply. I do require your driver's license. UK, good morning from the UK. It's probably not morning there though. I do require your driver's license, your case number, the nutshell version of your case, and I'm the only one that sees it. And the reason that I do require that is, I want to do my due diligence to make sure that it is a safe group. Obviously, I can't, completely 100% screen people. I'm one person and I don't have the capacity. However, I feel like that's a safeguard that would prohibit a lot of trolls or exes from joining the group if I have their information like that on file. So, it's not for everybody. Some people say, well, I don't feel comfortable sending that information to you. And I understand completely, but on my end of it, I need to make sure that I'm doing what I can to protect group members. So it is required. There's no way around it. But I would love to have you. Some of the groups are really growing. I know California, Texas, and Florida those are some of the problem states. There's lots of problems. They're all problem states, but some of the groups are really growing and becoming really active. So I love to see that. So to get into the questions for today, one of them is, have you gotten to the place of forgiveness when it comes to your ex? My case is in New Jersey and I live in Florida. Want to confirm? I would sign up for the state where your case is located, because that's the point, is to find other people in your area. I know Florida, for one, doesn't have open courtrooms. And so when I tell people go sit in your courtroom and learn your system, you can't. And so this is kind of the next best step to do that. I do want to issue my disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. When people submit questions to me, I'm answering as if, what I would do if I were in your shoes, what I've seen other people do, but I'm definitely not qualified to give legal advice. And so you should always consult with your attorney or an attorney to guide you, especially if you're going to implement a new strategy or do something different. Absolutely, they are your voice and advocate in that courtroom. So always check with your attorney. So somebody asked me about forgiveness, and now that my ex-husband is in the rearview mirror, have I gotten to a place of forgiveness? That's a really big, for me, forgiveness is a very personal thing. And can I honestly sit here and say that I have mentally, gone to a place where I say, hey, Seth, I 100% forgive you? No, I'm not there. And I don't know that I ever will be there. Dr. Ramani, one of her, statements that she's made is, forgiving a narcissist is basically extending an invitation for them to manipulate you. That's different in my case because we have no contact. He's blocked on my phone. Amen. But, for me, it's personal, and it was me getting to a place where I forgive myself for falling for someone like that, for, everything that came along with it. So forgiveness, absolutely, when it comes to me, but I also believe forgiveness involves the other person at least, even if they don't acknowledge exactly, what they should be forgiven for, at least coming forward and saying, I admit my wrongs. I admit I've done some things that I'm not proud of, or, asking for forgiveness. Um, that will never happen. The narcissist is not capable of it. So, forgiveness has a different meaning and different weight for everyone. And I know in our spirituality, in our faiths, a lot of them really put pressure on you to forgive. And so the closest I've been able to come, and probably will ever come, is compassion. Um, and I recently had this conversation with my daughters. They brought up my ex-husband last weekend when we were kind of driving around on the coast, and I said, you know what? I have an incredible amount of compassion for him from human to human. As, if I look back at him as a 5-year-old child, no one would ask for this life. No one would sign up for a life void of connection, authenticity, all of the lack of a conscience, for one. No one would willingly sign up to live in that dark space where they're looking at life like a chess game and it's all about strategy and beating people and winning. So I have compassion for him as a small child. And that's my answer to that. But I would love in the comments, what does it mean for you? And where have you, come in this? It's different for everyone. Second question, what is a good strategy if you have responded to the ex's repeated, insane, fear-based texts with no response, as taught in your books, which does limit little to stop the text? It requires me to block him during working hours. And now his fiance is bombarding her. But the custody agreement clearly states in writing, no contact except for emergencies about the kids, and only between 6 and 8 p.m. She's not sure what to do. I can tell you, if I were in that spot, I would sit down and calculate all of the text messages that have come through in the year 2020. Divide them out by month. In January, I received this many of them were in violation of our court order. This many of them were not, so you can really show, I could really show the difference between the violations versus what he's doing to adhere to the order. And I would block it off in chunks. You've got January through April now, to where you could send a very clear message, whether it's our family wizard or whatever your means of communication, to say, this is the outline of how many messages that have come through in violation of the court order, broken down by month. This is harassment. And if it continues, I have no choice but to seek help from law enforcement. And then if I were going to put a threat out there like that, I would absolutely follow through with it. I would never threaten the narcissist unless I really planned to go to the police station and do that, because the second you make a threat like that, or put up a boundary like that, and then don't follow through, they're going to have your number. They're going to know those are just empty threats, empty boundaries, and it almost heightens their attack. And so be very careful with that. You know yourself, your ex. Only put something like that in writing if you are planning to follow through. We don't need to forgive. It's a personal choice. Absolutely. And that's, it's where I've come with that. It's a very personal thing for me. I don't sell them, but I use essential oils, doTERRA. So there was a point in time where I walked around, they have the little bottle of Forgive, like just dousing myself in it, going like, but you know what? It's not, I agree with you. It's very personal. Somebody said, can you give tips for surviving a home evaluation? I've had 2 of them. And like with anything in the family court system, it truly comes down to who the evaluator is. And that's where another area where connecting and getting to know people in your local court system, in your state, can be so helpful because, if I were preparing for a home evaluation, there's general, you want to be authentic. You want it to be who you truly are. An example of that, and then I'll get back to the other point, but when our second evaluation was done back in 2013, and we had a very good evaluator who really, I feel like, picked up on the dynamics. We always say, do they get it? What does that even mean? Maybe he didn't come right out and say, this person's a narcissist or a sociopath, but, he got the dynamics of what was happening, that this was about control. It was about winning. It was about hurting me. But the difference between the report where he went into my ex-husband's house and my house, his description of the house that Glenn and I were living together in was that it seemed very natural, that the kids were running and playing and we were just letting them do their thing, and seemed relaxed and authentic, and that came across to him, and he really went out of his way to acknowledge that. He said, conversation was flowing and comfortable. And then the difference on the flip side, when he went into my ex-husband's house, that I think he actually described the energy as frenetic and just manic, and that my ex-husband did not seem calm, did not seem natural. At one point, he described a situation where he offered my daughters a piece of gum, and the girls looked at each other as they didn't even know how to respond to him because had likely been coached, and had a lot of pressure put on them about how they were supposed to act. And so he used that as an example of, the girls, most kids would just be like, yes, give me gum. They looked at each other like, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to say? He didn't prep us for gum. And he had staged a craft going on. And my daughter later told me that while he bought them birdhouses and they were going to paint them. And she said that he would not let them start until they saw the evaluator come into the driveway. And then they were able to start the birdhouses. And so I would never, that's just insane to me. I would much rather just be who I am authentically. And does this bring a lot of anxiety up in us to have to have somebody in our homes, basically having you under a microscope? Absolutely. So what I would do prior, get yourself centered, whether that's meditation, yoga, a long run, ride your Peloton, whatever it is. I would really go above and beyond to make sure that I am centered and being true to who I am as a parent. So, going back to it truly comes down to who the evaluator is. Everyone has a different style. Some of them want to come over around dinner time to see what the natural flow of the house is. I know they love to see kids with routines and schedules and actively involved. Even if you have a 2-year-old, start getting them involved in laundry. They can put the socks away, so team stuff going on in the house and the kids having routine and schedule. I think those are just the very basics, but it comes across if it's staged. So just be very conscious of that. You don't want your kids going, am I allowed to have gum? Just so. And then if what I would love is for this to be a collaborative effort. And I'm starting to put in the description, the narcissists don't need children. They use them to manipulate or make, yeah. The narcissists weaponize the kids, and the kids are a tool in this battle against you to win or to hurt you or to control you. And it's heartbreaking. But what I would love to see, I will be putting the questions that came through in the comment or in the description later today. And then if you have tips about custody evaluations or forgiveness or any of that, comment below, because when people watch this and later, not lifetime, and then they want to, maybe I didn't cover everything that they wanted to hear, you leave your advice. I don't have all of the answers. I will never claim to. Every single day I learn through other people. I have the absolute joy and privilege of talking to through my coaching practice to the most amazing people I've ever known in my life. And I hear their tips and their strategies, and, together we are, this is something that unless you've been through it, no one can truly get it. So please, share your advice in the comments for people who are coming into this later. And because just as much as I know about this system in a lot of ways. So the next question is, I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I was wondering what kinds of things to put in the order as long-term plan for the kids, besides the normal things like, the parenting time and the holidays. She says, I'm wondering for things like who pays for health insurance, college tuition, first right of refusal. What does one put in that they are glad they did to protect the kids long term and to prevent going back to court? That's a really, really difficult one to answer because everybody's circumstance is so much different. And here's what I have always kept in mind. It doesn't really matter what's in the parenting plan. My ex will likely not follow it anyway. If you have one that will, fantastic. I'm one of the most optimistic people you'll ever meet. But when it comes to, somebody just said cars, insurance, college, extracurricular activities, those are all things to be aware of. Choose your battles wisely. Cost for coming of age items. I don't put a lot of faith into my ex following the plan or the system actually enforcing the plan. And that sounds incredibly negative and Debbie Downer. But, my experience and what I see others go through, there's first right of refusal. I'll break that one down for people who don't know. First right of refusal means if my ex-husband is constantly leaving the kids to go to work or to go, his own extracurricular activities. First right of refusal would mean, depending on what the hour that it is set for, some judges will say he's allowed to have childcare for 3 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours. But if it's going to go beyond that, he has to give me the first right of having the children before he gives them to a childcare provider. In high conflict situations, a lot of judges won't touch that because it opens the door for more conflict. It means that now you're monitoring how long he's leaving the kids. It means that there's going to be even more he said, she said, possibly private investigators following to see how long this other person is leaving the children. It's such a difficult one. College tuition, I do see people put those in their provisions for that. Health insurance, I gave up on health insurance, so it's hard for me to answer this because I'm coming through the lens of my own case. My health insurance, my ex-husband lost or changed jobs, 2 or 3 times a year. And so I got so sick of going to the doctor's office and be like, sorry, we have a whole nother card right now. And then it just caused so much confusion within their billing system that I just said, forget it. I'm just taking it upon myself. to actually my husband, Glenn, who's a saint. Um, we went through his insurance because he's maintained his job for 30 years. And so, things like that. Choose your battles wisely. And there are some people of the mindset that it should be your somebody said you're probably going to go back to court no matter what. Absolutely. I could not even really calculate the number of times I've been in court. So, what is important for you? I would sit down and say, where are my battles in every single category? If I put this in writing and he violates it, you need to score it in each category for yourself. Where is your energy on each topic, and what would you be willing to put back in front of the court if he violated it? There are some people who, want a rock solid parenting plan with zero room for gray areas and loopholes. That's the best way to go. But the flip side of that is there's so much conflict. And are you going to really go to court and hold him accountable each and every time? But if people have solid advice that they'd like to share, things that they wish they would have put in their parenting plan, please feel free to leave them, after the live, come back and put your comments in, underneath, for other people to reference, because it's a great question. A lot of people will ask me, do you have any, sample parenting plans? I couldn't do that because that's kind of legal advice. But again, it's so different for everyone. So, my question relates to any strategies or insight you may have in handling bias minors counsel. I had a horrible experience with minors counsel. He's as much of a narcissist as my ex-husband. And so for me personally, I got to the point where there's sometimes where it's unavoidable that you have to have them involved in your case. It's a scary proposition to go head to head with them because they do, depending on what they have been ordered to do, they can carry a lot of power. Somebody said my attorney and judge refused to give a detailed order. That's exactly what my judge did. So while a detailed court order is fantastic in theory, like my judge said, I'm not going this detailed because I don't want to micromanage this guy. And so I agree, a lot of it again comes down to who your judge is. But minors counsel, back to that, anybody who's been appointed to your case, sometimes when they are really biased and over the top, you almost need to be documenting and building a case on the side for them in case you want to try to hold them accountable for being biased. Like if minors counsel said something to me in person that just caught me really off guard and didn't sit well with me, I would then go home at the end after that. Is minors counsel the same as a GAL? Yes. Guardian ad litem and minors counsel, different names, different states, but yes, same thing. I would go home after a meeting with minors counsel if something was said in person that, seemed incredibly biased or off to me. I would go home and send him an email and say, in an effort to memorialize our conversation today, I just wanted to clarify, this is what I believe I heard you say. If I misunderstood you, please correct me. But, that, and so I take it from, he said, she said, hearsay, any of those things, and get it in writing. And there came a point in my case with minors counsel where I would not only send an email and it would just go into their inbox of, I'd never hear back. Then I would also print that out and send it in the mail so that I had a copy that I not only emailed this to their office, but I mailed it. And it was kind of putting him on notice that we have an issue. But it's a slippery slope to really go head to head with one of these people who potentially have a lot of say in your case. You want to keep things as kumbaya as you possibly can. And in some situations like this, I just, kind of thought of it as I'm doing my time. And as soon as their little term on my case is up, they're going to be in my rear view mirror. Nothing is forever. So some of it you just kind of have to grit and bear it. But I don't know the details in your case. Okay, the next question is, my ex-husband launched a smear campaign against me upon separation. He turned my children against me. It's heartbreaking. Um, they are 19 and 27. Is there anything I can do? I personally haven't had that experience, but I know many others who have. And I often say that the two most difficult times in a child custody case with a narcissist are when you have really little nonverbal children, and then the second most horrible time is teenagers and young adults, because they are easily manipulated, they are easily bought. And you know, I try to put myself back into my shoes as a 26-year-old young woman, and how I was completely blindsided by this individual, and how many years it took me to really see behind the mask, because I do see the best in people. Uh, just by nature. And that's typically a positive thing, but it's not always. And so I was heavily manipulated. So I try to empathize with them. First of all, especially in the teen years, really difficult age, even with the best of circumstances, it's a difficult age. And you look at this age group and they're almost, seem narcissistic themselves, and to some degree that's normal. When they get into early adulthood, different story. But I want to say, I see these things turn around all the time. And especially when you remove yourself from the equation, remove yourself from the conflict and say, you know what? I love you and I'm here and I'm never going away. And keep letting them know that, I'm not part of this conflict with dad. You are my focus, you are my world, and I know you don't want to hear that right now, or I know you're not interested in participating, but I'm not going away. I love you. And just dropping those notes, whether it's text message, in their mailbox, every month. I see it turn around all the time. I hear moms that I worked with 2 years ago who could have written this exact same thing, then email me last week and say they're back and it's better than it's ever been. And usually what happens is the teen or the young adult has their own encounter with the narcissist when you remove yourself from the equation and they're left to their own. And whether it's them expressing their independence or having a disagreement, or whatever, that right now the kids are weaponized by the narcissist. And when you can, at 17, you're almost there. You're not going to have to deal with this person for the most part. And so taking yourself out of the equation, they will come back. And I have yet to see a story where they don't at some point. I think, just keep letting them know that you're there forever. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I think I'm going to go do a Facebook Live and check in with everybody over there at One Mom's Battle. It's been a while, but have a happy Saturday, and your kids need you to be a rock for them no matter what they're going through. So make sure your own oxygen mask is on and centered, and make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you're notified every time we do one of these. But have a great Saturday.